How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video on cheap luxury cars. Now, a few months ago I did a video on cheap luxury cars under £5,000 and I promised you guys that was about as low as I could possibly go. However, a bunch of you guys in the comments said I could definitely do lower, and so here I am again giving it a go at £2,000. Now, is it a good idea to buy a cheap luxury car at under £2,000? Probably not. In fact, almost certainly not. But in this video, I'm going to show you 10 of them that you can all buy for under £2,000 and you can make your own decisions. Just remember, at that price range, maintenance, repairs, insurance, road tax, all that kind of stuff is going to be quite expensive. And remember that luxury under £2,000 is only a certain level of luxury. We're not talking like modern day Rolls Royces, we're talking a very different clientele of car. Now, my previous video on luxury cars did over 7,500 likes. So if this video gets over 15,000 likes, double that, I will buy a cheap luxury car at under £2,000 and I'll see just how bad it is. Find out if the reliability is really bad and find out if it is genuinely a money pit. So do hit the like button if you want to see that. Remember that I'm in the UK as well, so prices in other countries may differ. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Subscribe as well if you're new. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Starting us off at number 10, we have the Volvo XC90, which is named a mid-size luxury crossover SUV, but in reality it's pretty massive by UK standards. For under £2,000 you'll easily get a D4, which is a 2.4 litre turbocharged inline-5 diesel engine which makes 185 brake horsepower and goes from 0 to 60 in 10.6 seconds. This first generation was in production for an exceptionally long time, from 2002 until 2016 in global markets. It came as a result of the adventure concept car released in 2001, and on release it won multiple awards, including North American Car of the Year, and Jeremy Clarkson himself has apparently owned 3 of them, saying they're incredibly practical. From a luxury perspective, Volvo wanted to make a car that would rival German brands like BMW, Mercedes and Audi. It'll comfortably seat 7 people, with all 3 rows having air conditioning. The interior quality is good, if a little boring in terms of design, but for the time the number of features the car got was pretty mesmerising. It's like Volvo's answer to the S-Class. These are listed for a minimum of around £700, making this the cheapest car on this list, while £2,000 will get you a 2004 model still with very high miles. And a key benefit of these, they have generally been very reliable, and owners note that they're very well put together. Injectors are a known issue on diesels and are quite expensive to fix, so worth watching out for. That said, on average these old XC90s have done upwards of 140,000 miles here in the UK. Next up, it's a Rogue One, which probably doesn't look particularly special, but was Peugeot's answer to the BMW 7 Series as an executive luxury saloon. It's the Peugeot 607 with a 2 litre inline-4 diesel engine making 136 brake horsepower, which gets the car to 60 in 10.5 seconds. It followed on from the 605, launching in 1999 on the same chassis but with a new design that brought the interior up to date, at least for the time, and as it was the flagship car for the brand, it came with the best tech and luxury that Peugeot could offer. Its whole concept was to be a car that you could waft in, and at almost 5 meters long it definitely fits the bill, at least in terms of size. If you got a pre-2005 example, you'd gain a velour interior, and in any after that you'll find French leather, heated seats, cruise control, climate control, wallowy suspension, solid sound deadening and the rest. This car really is kitted out. Owners note though that you really need to be willing to take your time to get to your destination in these, as they aren't built for speed, they're built for you to chill out in. £1,500 is the minimum that I could find these listed for, and at the time of making this video there are just 3 available at under the 2k mark, which would probably suggest that you may need to spend a little more. Many owners have noted build quality issues on these and problems with diesel particulate filters causing a warning light. The key thing owners suggest though is that the 2 litre block doesn't have enough grunt for the size and weight of the car, and recommend getting the 2.2 instead. Next up is a car that I've been trying to get into a video for ages, the Citroen C6, which is another French executive saloon that hosts a 2.7 litre diesel V6, which puts out 208 brake horsepower and a 0 to 60 time of 8.6 seconds. This car was based off the C6 Lineage concept car, which actually had suicide doors like you'd find on some Rolls Royces. The real C6 sadly didn't get these, but it retains a similar shape and remains focused on being a luxury wafter that effortlessly gets you from A to B in a level of comfort. A lot of car people look down on French cars, particularly within the luxury space, and reviews of the car when it was released definitely definitely reflect this. However, one thing they agreed on was the exceptional styling on both the exterior and interior, which puts competitors like the E-Class and A6 to shame. There were complaints about the center console being cluttered, but the digital dials and heads-up display as well as the premium materials helped to pull your attention away from that. Now I have to confess, while making this video, the only C6 that was available for under 2k disappeared off the internet, so instead take a look at this example for £2,250. To be frank, these usually sit between the £4,000 to £7,000 mark though. However, owners really do complain about build quality, with problems like water leaking into the boot, rust issues around the rear windows, and electrical issues too. There are some other known problems with rough running, which is usually a result of EGR valves failing. Let's jump onto probably my personal favourite car on this list, the VW Phaeton, which has appeared in some of my previous videos on luxury cars, so I'll try to keep it short. It has a 3-litre turbo diesel V6, which makes 241 brake horsepower and will go from 0 to 60 in 8.3 seconds. I said before that the car was literally built to destroy other German luxury car manufacturers, as they had chosen to take on VW in the small car class. With this in mind, VW went all in to make what is basically a comfort-focused limousine, which sits on the same platform as the Bentley Continental GT, and in top spec even shares the same engine minus the turbos. The interior is probably the most luxurious of any car on this list, with nice premium materials throughout, and the best technology on offer at the time. Comfort is assisted further by adaptive air suspension that has continuous damping control, so the ride quality is unreal. You will only just find these around the 2k mark, and usually the best place to get them cheaper from what I've seen is eBay, where I've bought 3 of my cars. It is worth noting that reliability on these is touch and go. Forums are full of owners who've had no major issues at all, while others have had constant problems with stuff like injectors, swirl flaps, power steering pumps, and boot lid wiring. It wouldn't be a video on luxury cars if I didn't include an S-Class, and this time it's the W220 S320 CDI, which has a 3.2-litre turbo diesel inline 6, putting out 197 brake horsepower and a 0 to 60 time of 8.2 seconds. Now the S-Class is Mercedes' flagship car if you weren't already aware, so like the Phaeton, Mercedes put the best of their available technology into these cars for each and every generation. The W220 was no different, and the list of luxury features is far too long for me to go through in this video, but to mention a few, it has self-closing doors, a voice recognition system which is insane for a car that dropped in 1999, airmatic suspension system for maximum comfort, automatic climate control, rain sensing wipers, and a bunch of other cool bits, which you'd expect of a flagship Mercedes of the time. That interior has certainly dated at this point, but that's not to take away from the fact that for the time it was definitely a luxury car. I'd have loved to have been chilling in the back of one of these, particularly if it had the very rare option of a fridge between the 2 rear seats to chill some bubbles in. £1,000 the minimum that I could find these listed for, and for £2,000 you're looking at a 2002 model with mileages down to around 80,000. Owners do note the airmatic system can go wrong and is quite expensive to fix, and others note smaller electrical issues like window regulators failing. Worth noting, many of these have suffered and died from rust related issues too, as Mercedes might have used worse steel when building these beasts. So I hope you're enjoying the video. If you are, please do hit the like button. As I said, 15,000 likes, which I know is a ridiculously huge ask, and I will buy one of these cars or a cheap luxury car at under £2,000. And don't forget, I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year, so if you hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. On to the top 5 now, and in 5th we have the BMW 7 Series, which in 730i spec has a 3-litre inline 6 engine, putting out 227 brake horsepower, which goes from 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds. This is the 4th generation 7 Series, otherwise known as the E65 or E66 if you get yourself a long wheelbase example. It was the first BMW to receive the iDrive infotainment system, which is pretty cool, but it was also the first to receive the bangle butt styling, which is slightly more controversial. Chris Bangle was only part of that styling though, as the key designer was Adrian van Hooijdonk, who won a competition between 20 designers to create a concept for the 7 Series. The interior is both executive and interesting on these, in that BMW moved the gear selector from the center console onto a stalk behind the wheel, and placed cup holders where the selector would normally be. You can clearly see the difference between the more opulent design on the inside of the 7 Series than with other BMWs of the time. £1,700 the lowest that I could find these listed for in other specs, and for £2,000 you'll get a high mileage 2004 example. But, and it's a big but, many owners have had problems with these, some going as far as to suggest you should never even consider buying one. It is quite a complicated car and doesn't come from an era renowned for BMW reliability. Take a look on forums and there are plenty of horror stories with these. I would say steer clear of these unless you are, for whatever reason, a massive fan of this specific 7 Series. Next up in this very international list is the Chrysler 300C with its 3-litre turbo diesel V6 engine that makes 215 brake horsepower and will go from 0 to 60 in 7.4 seconds. I included this in a previous video on luxury cars and mentioned it was actually a major sales success from a Chrysler perspective here in Europe. It won many awards, appeared in many aspects of popular culture, and was generally considered to be the poor man's Bentley, if only because of its exterior stylings. Part of the reason why it was so successful was that interior, which received rave reviews. It may not have as many wild luxury features as some other cars on this list, but it did maintain a simple and effective space, which is comfortable and practical. It isn't shouty luxury, I'd probably call it more executive than luxury, but it does the job. Like some of the other cars on this list, $2,000 is the minimum that I could find any listed for, and you're of course looking at higher mileage examples for that kind of money. Despite their popularity, there are known electrical and suspension issues which are generally cheap to fix. The engine is Mercedes sourced, and earlier examples have had swirl port motor problems which fortunately cost just £50 to solve. The main problems I could find were with the gearbox, so worth watching out for leaking oil or low speed rumbling on throttle. In third is the X300 Jaguar XJ, the oldest car on this list, but still a luxury executive saloon with a 4-litre inline 6, which makes 290 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 6.9 seconds. The car was released midway through 1994 and ended production in 1997. For that time, it was one of the main contenders in the luxury car market, and its main ethos was to be a more reliable and better built XJ than the previous generations, and it was supposed to return to more traditional Jaguar styling on the exterior. The interior reminds me of an old, outdated but formerly very opulent hotel lobby, with the wood panelling and choice of more premium leather colours. The seats are plush, rounded and focused on comfort, and if you're lucky you'll find an example spec'd with the rear sunblinds, which look pretty rich. I think it's well on its way to potentially becoming a classic in the future, or at least examples that have been maintained well. You can get the smaller engine for as little as £1,000, but for the 4-litre you're looking at £1,750 at the bottom end, and at £2,000 you'll get a 1997 example with around 90,000 miles on the clock. There's a really great reliability guide on the Jag owners forums for this car, and many are surprisingly positive about the i6 engine's reliability. There are some reports of noisy timing chain dampeners and a few head gasket failures, but overall not bad at all, with many managing well over 150 to 200,000 miles. It is an old car, so expect to treat it as a bit of a classic and watch out for a few electrical issues, many of which were solved from the previous gen, but it's not immune. Just missing out on the top spot is the Audi A8, which is a 4-litre turbo diesel V8 which puts out 270 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. This is the second generation A8, but you'll only find the pre-facelift example, unlike the post-facelift you may have seen in one of my previous videos. That means a split front grille and a slightly less modern overall look. It's on the same platform as the Phaeton that I mentioned previously, but with less focus on luxury and more focus on being an executive wafter, more purposeful if that makes any sense. The A8 was meant to rival the S-Class, hence Audi invested in putting as many new innovations as possible into the car, with 8 different features that were either first for Audi or first in the car world more broadly. It's a minor point, but I really like the motorised Bang & Olufsen tweeters, just a nice little touch that is entirely unnecessary but kind of cool. Also kind of cool is the interior more broadly, as it is reminiscent of a private jet in the right spec, thanks to those huge seats and massive centre console. The minimum that I could find these listed for is around £2,000, you'll be looking at around 100,000 miles on the clock for that kind of money. The air suspension on these is the key pain point, and very expensive to fix. The ZF transmission is generally pretty reliable, but needs to have transmission fluid changed every so often to keep it fresh, and there are a few small electrical issues to note given how complex the car is. Swirl flaps have also had issues, and some owners mention the 4-litre block is quite rare, so parts can be harder to find. Taking the top spot on this list is probably the car with the coolest engine, the Lexus LS430, which hosts a 4.3-litre V8 which makes 278 brake horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. This Japanese luxury saloon, as with many other cars on this list, was built to flex the best of Lexus's technology and interior features at the time. I've mentioned before that the interior was designed to match the interior of a guest room from the Four Seasons Hotel, and the seats were inspired by the first class ones you find in BA planes. It houses a champagne cooler in between the rear seats too, which is a staple luxury feature, not to mention the rear window curtains and air suspension for extreme comfort. It is a lovely, if a bit old, place to be on the inside. The exterior is a little more basic, but that came as a result of an aero-focused design, with the car being tested in the same wind tunnel as the bullet train. Again, £2,000 is the absolute minimum that I could find these listed for, and normally you'd see these for under the £5,000 mark. The best thing about this car though is the reliability. Owners suggest it's generally bulletproof. drive. There are known transmission issues, valve cover gasket problems, and engine oil seal failures, which all cost a bit to fix, but they're pretty uncommon. I'd say if you want peace of mind, go check some out online and see how many have done a ridiculous number of miles. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to hit the like button, I would really appreciate it, and subscribe as well if you're new. Massive thank you to the patrons as always for their continued support, and to you guys as well for watching. I'll see you in the next one.